Oral questions, questions orales, the honourable member for Middlesex, London.
Another $7 billion exodus for the start of the year. That's more money leaving Canada than's coming in. Over $1 trillion have left since 2015. The Prime Minister is pitching Canada as an investment hub, all while his policies are the most restrictive in the G7 for foreign capital. It's almost like he doesn't know what he's doing. So let's start with the basics. Do the Liberals believe that Canada should be a country that's a magnet for jobs and for capital, or do they think that Canada should be a country where ambitions go to die?
Yeah.
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Speaker, investments coming into Canada are at record levels, actually close to 20-year highs. Last year alone, $97 billion of foreign direct investment into Canada. That's more major projects being built. That's major, big aircrafts being built here in Canada. Airbus's current deal with Mirabel, that's 150 Airbuses sold for over $15 billion, supporting 30,000 workers, Mr. Speaker. $97 billion into our country, building big projects. That's what Canada's going to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Middlesex, London.
Let me make this simple for my colleague who just totally missed the point. The Prime Minister, his boss, holds 91% of his personal investments in the United States. Deep down, it feels like the Liberals know that they have purposely built a failing economy that's driving jobs, capital, and opportunity straight out of Canada, straight to the United States, where the Prime Minister keeps his money. So let me ask this, Mr. Speaker, are they doing this to help him cash in and get rich quick, while the rest of us take the hit?
L'honorable ministre de l'Industrie.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to share good news that are important in order to make the point that my colleague is missing right now, which is yesterday we were able to announce 3,000 new jobs across the country. Why? Because Saab, Swedish company, decided to work with Bombardier, Canadian company, and deliver for the first time a surveillance plane, and that brings back Canada into military aerospace. We'll create jobs for a defense industrial strategy across the country in every single province represented here on the House of the Chamber. Thank you.
The honourable member for Chilliwack, Hope.
The Prime Minister's off to New York for what even the CBC calls a straight-up networking trip. Perhaps he'll meet with his friends at Brookfield Management there. Like so many other investors, they fled Bay Street for Wall Street, with Main Street in Canada paying the price. Over the last Liberal decade, more than $1 trillion in investment has left Canada. That means lost jobs and lost wages for Canadian workers. The Prime Minister himself holds 91% of his personal investments in the United States. So is he in New York for Canadians, or is he just there to check up on his own portfolio?
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, if they didn't spend so much time working on their clips, they might see people like the CEO of Shell, who just invested $20 billion in this country. He might actually see Chief Clayton of the Nisga'a Nation, who yesterday said she's looking forward to manage prosperity instead of poverty. That's how we're building Canada.
Just a reminder, we don't want to suggest that a member is not present in the House. The honourable member for Chilliwack, Hope.
Speaking of $20 billion, Mr. Speaker, that's how much money has left Canada in the last 4 quarters under this Prime Minister. And after more than a decade of Liberal taxes, red tape and uncertainty, investors, including the Prime Minister, continue to take their money elsewhere. So despite Liberal re-announcements, major projects remain trapped in years of delays while Canadian workers lose those jobs. So when will the Prime Minister take real action to cut red tape and repeal these anti-development laws that are continuing to bring about an investment exodus?
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
We could go on and on. Why doesn't he come? Why doesn't he come to Dease Lake, where we're investing billions in a new mine? Why doesn't he go to Nunavut and see where we've invested $4 billion in a new mine in Nunavut? They're so busy working on their clips, they're not actually seeing what's happening in this country, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent at Cowenhag. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is currently in New York for what the CBC has described as a
Pas censé parler du
We are not to discuss the absence of a member in the House. He may continue. The member may continue. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was in New York this morning for what the CBC has called a straight-up networking trip. After 10 years of Liberal governance, Canada now ranks as the most restrictive G7 country when it comes to foreign investment. According to RBC Bank, $1 trillion, that is $1,000 billion in investments, have left Canada over the past 10 years. This begs the question, why does the Prime Minister hold 91% of his investments in the United States? Is it because he recognizes that it's something that they haven't understood yet? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, you know, Canada is the most popular destination for foreign investments in the G7 today. Second point, just to show to what extent we are a destination for business, 3,000 new jobs were announced yesterday because Saab, a Swedish company, decided to enter into a partnership with Bombardier, a Canadian company we are very proud of, to make sure they can really work together in Canadian aerospace, a new surveillance aircraft for us, but also for several other countries throughout the world. That's how we're going to build a strong country. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent à Cowenhoek. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, I have to remind the Liberals that Liberal Canada is causing investments to flee. When the Prime Minister was officially running Brookfield, he actually arranged to move the headquarters from Toronto to New York. Well done. Do as I say, not as I do. And it's not getting any better, Mr. Speaker. Statistics Canada reports this morning that for the first quarter of this year, $17 billion in investments went overseas. When will the Liberals take concrete action to increase investments in Canada for the benefit of all Canadians? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, in the last 6 questions, what have we learned? We learned that there's going to be the building of military aircraft here in Canada, that we are building mines in Quebec, in BC, in the territories, in the Arctic, and that we're drawing in an incredible record number of investments, and at TD Investments, not from the Conservative Party War Room, referred to the highest rate of foreign investment in Canada in 2025 since 2007, Mr. Speaker. So clearly we are drawing in investments.
Saint-Jean.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the National Assembly of Quebec unanimously condemned the Prime Minister's authoritarian shift, which holds that 50% plus one of the votes would not be sufficient in a referendum. It reiterated its support for Quebec's Bill 99, which defines a clear majority as 50% plus one, as do all democratic votes around the world. It declared that no parliament or government can override the democratic will of the Quebec people to determine their own future. Has the Prime Minister understood Quebec's message? And will he respect the foundation of democracy? The Honourable Minister, Government Transformation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I understand the members for the Bloc Québécois are rising every morning and they wake up every morning only hoping to discuss clarity and the referendum. On this side of the House, we wonder, how can we create opportunities for Quebec? How can we unite the Canadian economy? How can we protect our sovereignty as a country? And an example, yesterday we announced Global Eye with Bombardier, defending our sovereignty, creating over 3,000 jobs in Canada. And that is aside from the Airbus fleet that was ordered 2 weeks ago. That's what creating opportunities for Quebecers means. Those are the priorities for Quebec. Those are our priorities. Let them keep asking questions. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, all of Quebec's elected officials have condemned the Prime Minister's authoritarian drift with his referendum clarity bill. I'd like to draw his attention to a reaction that might inspire him, that of the Liberals. I quote their leader, "We are both Federalists and Democrats in the Liberal Party." Yeah, indeed, it is possible to be a Federalist, a Democrat, and a Liberal all at once. It is possible to hold multiple principles at once. But the Prime Minister, for his part, is just a Liberal in addition to being paternalistic and anti-democratic. Will the Liberals bring him back down to earth and ask him to repeal the Clarity Act? The Honourable Minister, once again, Mr. Speaker, there is a full disconnect on the part of the Bloc Québécois between what is of concern, as to what is of concern to Quebecers. What is affordability, creating good jobs, giving our young people good opportunities, workplace training like what we have in the economic update. It's massive projects like the high-speed rail between Montreal and Toronto. It's, for instance, Nouveau Monde Graphique, Contrecoeur in Montreal, major projects that will build Quebec, give people opportunities. That's what's of concern to people. It's not these issues about the referendum and Clarity Act from the Bloc. The honourable member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, regardless of what the Liberals think, the Clarity Act is a tool to undermine democracy if the election results do not suit the federal government. Its sole purpose is to suppress the will of the people. It is a law that undermines democracy. It undermines the rights of people to self-determination. It undermines justice itself by completely disregarding the Supreme Court's ruling, which states that the concept of a clear majority is purely qualitative and not tied to the margin of victory in terms of the number of votes. This is a pure and simple drift towards authoritarianism. Aren't the Liberals ashamed to promote it? The Honourable Minister responsible for Canada-US trade. Mr. Speaker, the member for the Bloc is referring to respect for democracy. We in government will start by waiting for Quebecers to vote in a provincial election that's upcoming in the fall. We understand the Bloc is launching into hypotheticals. They're waiting with bated breath for a provincial elections. We're not going to focus on judging those issues. We're going to focus on issues that matter to Quebecers, Quebec workers and Canadian workers. The tariff threats from the Americans, how to support our industries, that's what we're doing.
Government, Canadians are paying more for gas, more for groceries, and more for housing. After all of that, they just want to kick back and relax and maybe watch a little Netflix or listen to a bit of Spotify. But even that small delight is now being denied to them at cost. Instead, they're going to have to pay more because the Liberal-appointed CRTC is tripling the streaming tax from 5% to 15%, which of course will be passed directly to the consumer. But in Section 7, of the Broadcasting Act, the Liberals actually have the power to reject this levy and stand up for Canadians. So will they commit today to going to bat on behalf of Canadian consumers and making life more affordable for them by scrapping
the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's be clear out of the gate. This is not a tax. This is an imaginary tax. Since day one, we have been relentlessly focused on affordability. That's why we cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. This is about equity for creators. This is about fair competition. But mostly, it's about supporting Canadian storytellers, Canadian creators, Canadian artists, because we know how important they are to building a Canada strong.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Judge. At the end of the day, Canadians will have to pay 15% more for their online streaming service. And that is a direct result of this government's policy. Now, most of us would call that a tax, but the Liberals like to avoid that term. The point is this. Canadians are going to have to pay a whole lot more for Netflix, for Disney+, for Spotify, because of policies from this government. But this government has the power to do something about it. They can, in fact, repeal this decision. So after 11 years of making life more expensive for Canadians, will they finally stand up for the Canadian consumer and axe this tax?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Once again with the slogans, once again with being a little loose on the facts, this is not a new tax. But since we want to talk about the economy, let's talk about the cultural sector and how much it does for the Canadian economy. It generates billions of dollars across the country, employs hundreds of thousands of people in each of our ridings. It tells us who we are as Canadians, it unites us, and it helps us build a strong country.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Let's talk about the strength of our economy because it's directly reflected in how well a household is doing. And right now, a household in Canada, many households are paying 120% of their income just to cover rent and food. Not 100%, 120%. And then this Liberal government's policies are now going to add another tax to their regular monthly bills. That is punitive in nature, but this government has the ability to do something about that. So will they instruct the CRTC to back off and scrap the tax?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the policy of the government, as my colleague has just laid out, is quite clear. Canadians deserve to have production, creation, and their stories told by Canadians, for Canadians, in Canada, by these global giant platforms. There is no tax. There is no tax, period. It is imaginary. It is fake. And this is the same people, Mr. Speaker, who want to defund the CBC, who want to kill our cultural industries, who want to take Canada out of every single piece of culture that we can.
The Honourable Member for King Bond.
Seniors built this country, yet every Liberal budget dismisses seniors and leaves them further behind. After 11 years of wasteful Liberal spending on luxuries for ministers and higher taxes, seniors are paying more for everything, more taxes, more debts, more on the national credit card, more of the same from these Liberals. The National Institute of Aging found that 1 in 5 Canadians over 50 can't afford basic needs like groceries, heating, or transportation. How out of touch does this Prime Minister have to be to ignore seniors who are struggling?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, this is very rich coming from the Conservatives whose plan is to do nothing. Their plan is to absolutely ignore the needs of Canadians, and we've seen that when they vote against measures like ensuring that there's old age security for seniors, when they put forward measures like ensuring that seniors 65 to 67 can't get old age security. Mr. Speaker, when those folks talk about seniors, what Canadians should hear is crickets.
The Honourable Member for King Bond.
The reality is seniors cannot afford the essentials like groceries, rent, and utilities. They can't afford the gas or transit needed to even get to these programs. The Liberal grocery rebate gimmick was pennies in a bucket. Food bank usage among seniors continues to rise. Over 8% of food bank users are seniors. Statistics tell us that more single seniors are now living below the poverty line. How much more do seniors have to struggle before this Prime Minister finally delivers real relief for their daily expenses?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, that member talks about affordability, but when it comes time to support the very measures that benefit the seniors in her riding, she votes against it, Mr. Speaker. 31,000 members of her riding receive the Canada Dental benefit, Mr. Speaker. That's seniors. Seniors benefit. How does that member stand here and talks about affordability when she votes against the measures that are supporting seniors?
The Honourable Member for Regina Louvain.
While millions of Canadians struggle to put food on their table, this Liberal Prime Minister's luxury in-flight catering costs soared to $195,000 for 3 trips. At a time when 1 in 3 employed Canadians are using debt to pay for their food. And in my home province of Saskatchewan, they're talking about if it is okay or not to steal groceries from grocery stores. How out of touch does this Prime Minister have to be to cater luxury meals for him and his buddies while Canadians are struggling to put food on the table?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, our international efforts are about bringing results home for workers here in Canada. I'll talk about January, our trip to China, $7 billion of agriculture access to China from our farmers across the country. That's more access for canola growers, our beef farmers, our seafood sector. Collectively, that's over 500,000 jobs being supported for workers and farmers across the country. And that's not all. Recently, we met with Malaysia's AirAsia CEO, which brought a deal over $15 billion, which results in 30,000 jobs across the country. All of our international efforts are about bringing jobs home for Canadians here, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Regina Louvain.
What an out-of-touch answer. How arrogant can these Liberals get? Like, seriously? The topic on the most listened to radio show in Saskatchewan on Tuesday was, is it okay to steal food
from grocery stores? Is stealing and micro-looting okay? In the breadbasket of Canada, after 1 year of this Liberal Prime Minister, Canadians are struggling so much they need to steal food to feed their family. The Prime Minister did tell young people that they would have to make sacrifices. Was becoming a criminal to feed your family one of those sacrifices?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
That member stands up and votes against the very things that would help members in his province. For example, Mr. Speaker, parents are now paying $10 a day for childcare, saving up to $6,900 per child per year through early learning and childcare. The member has voted against the Spring Economic Update, where young people, apprentices, are going to get income top-ups as they take their training and become Red Seals tradespeople. He's voted against Canada Summer Jobs. He's voted against feeding programs. He's voted against index benefits. What would he vote for, Mr. Speaker? That's what his constituents are wondering.
The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Liberal member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie announced that he would be leaving politics. He'll be leaving because he had little to no influence on the Prime Minister's pro-oil decisions. He pointed out that during the last election, the Liberal platform contained the words climate change 28 times and the word pipeline 0 times. This is a scandalous way to deceive voters. I quote the MP. He says, "I can tell you that I'm not the only one who's uncomfortable with what's happening. So I'm wondering, where are the others and why are they hiding?" The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question also I wish I could ask a member, the Bloc member, because the leader of the Bloc Québécois did an about-face, perhaps the entire party did, when he supported the fracking in Anticosti Island for oil drilling. Do they have a different opinion? Because he certainly supported it. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. In actual fact, Mr. Speaker, 60 Liberals founded an environmental caucus, but after the announcement of the new pipeline and the resignation of the MP for Laurier-Sainte-Marie, they seem to be in hiding. Even the co-chair of that caucus says the environmental caucus's mission is not to promote the environment. Imagine that. Their goal is not to promote the environment. It is, and I quote, to bring members together for good conversations. Yikes. So, Mr. Speaker, are we basically talking about a group of out-of-touch amateurs here? Is that why they're defending oil policy straight? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to introduce him to our environmental caucus on the Liberal side. 173 of us. Actually, we're all fighting for climate change. Our government will continue to fight against climate change. We will continue to protect the environment. That's what our government is committing to doing. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, $195,000. That is the amount the Prime Minister charged Canadians for gourmet meals on just 3 flights. Life's good for the Prime Minister. It doesn't matter. He's not the one paying. Meanwhile, 34% of Canadian workers have to go into debt just to eat properly. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister stop adding luxury meals to his inflationary deficits, which are paid for by Canadian men and women? The Honourable Minister, Government Transformation. Mr. Speaker, over the last year, it's unheard of. Canada has signed 20 security and trade agreements throughout the country, the world, critical mineral agreements. We are beating records in terms of direct foreign investment in the country. And an example, 150 Airbus aircraft ordered here in Quebec. That is the fruit of the work of the Prime Minister and his ministers to bring back investments and good jobs to this country. That is specifically what people from the Beauce region and Quebecers expect. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister seems to be out of touch. Why does the Prime Minister need luxury meals during his official trips? We're talking about taxpayers' money here. $195,000 on food for just 3 flights. Talk about splurge. Wouldn't a simple chicken dinner or a nice lasagna suffice for the Prime Minister? At the same time, will the Liberal Prime Minister stop driving up the bill for the people of Beauce? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. What is fascinating when I listen to my colleague's question is that he's actually causing the bills to go up for the Beauce region because he's depriving so many people in his riding of the child benefit and the groceries and essentials benefit and other things as well. If we're talking about reducing the cost of living for Quebecers and people of the Beauce, honestly, he has no right to lecture us on this. The Honourable Member for
Pendant que 2,2 millions de Canadiens.
The Honourable Member for Montmorency-Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, 2.2 million people turn to food banks in a single month, and the Prime Minister at 40,000 feet is being served by a luxury caterer. Meanwhile, 22% of Canadians have lost weight because they can't afford to eat their fill. What did the Prime Minister receive by his luxury caterer? Small bowls of Normandy butter, beef tenderloin with Bordelaise sauce, veal cutlets, Scottish salmon, crème brûlée, wines. He's talking about making sacrifices. But is everyone on his side Canadians, or are they above and beyond? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Infrastructure and Housing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. They think that by repeating the same thing day after day, Canadians will start believing they are concerned about affordability. We on this side are hard at work with real measures to address issues of affordability. We've eliminated the gas tax. We've created the school food program. We're building affordable homes. We're protecting jobs in the most harshly hit industries affected by the tariffs. We are creating training, and they voted against all of these measures. No one actually believed the Conservatives are there for the most vulnerable. Let's be serious. Let them get to work.
Honorable député de Lévis-Lotbinière.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government is burying its head in the sand when it comes to agriculture and investing in agricultural research centres. Canadian agriculture is preparing for the next generation, and closing these 7 research centres is diminishing our capacity to innovate and prepare for the future of agriculture. We have a lack of leadership in the Department of Agriculture. Will this decision be changed before it's too late? The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, from the very beginning, I made it clear that we will work with the provinces and territories, academia, and the private sector to ensure we have a strong, effective research centres across this country. We have 17 across the country. We've been doing research for 140 years in this country, Mr. Speaker, and we're going to continue. We've been working with Laval. We've been working with the University of Saskatchewan. We've been working with the University of Alberta. We've been working with the governments in those provinces. We're going to continue to build research in this country because it's needed, Mr. Speaker, but we're going to do research for industry, not for the opposition.
The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals just have crumbs for agriculture. They gave $6.6 billion for the Currim software program, $19 billion for consultants, and $100 billion for a high-speed rail project that is going to ruin a farming community in Quebec and Ontario. And so to reduce things by $23 million a year by closing these 7 research centres is unacceptable. This is affecting our country's food security. It's not too late to fix this. Mr. Speaker, why historically the Liberals are always letting down the agricultural sector in Canada?
Speaker, they always said politics was a bit of theater, but that's pretty good, I must admit. Let me say, Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to build the agriculture community in this country. We know how important it is. There's going to be good news announcements coming up very shortly in reference to research, Mr. Speaker. We're working extremely hard, but let me say, Mr. Speaker, granting an exemption for the use of strychnine in Alberta and the prairies, moving to change the mandates of CFIA and PMRA, adding pastoral rentals to agri-stability, enhancements to APP, new funding for agri-marketing, introducing the productivity and super deduction. Wow. Mr. Speaker, we're just getting started.
The Honourable Member for Sault Ste. Marie, Algoma.
Mr. Speaker, the American tariffs on steel are completely unjustified and illegal. This House knows that. But they're affecting my community of Sault Ste. Marie and the surrounding area. They're making people anxious, and they're making very difficult decisions for people to make right now. Recently, the Minister of Industry was in the Soo to make a very important announcement on how she would have the workers' backs and the industry's backs. Can she update us with her plan to support the workers, support the industry, and make a major milestone investment at Tenaris?
L'honorable ministre de l'Industrie.
I would like to thank the hard work of our fantastic MP from Sault Ste. Marie.
Excellent.
I know that the community, I know that the town have been going through really, really tough times because of the unjustified and illegal American tariffs against our steel workers. But good news, notwithstanding U.S. protectionism, our plan is working because in Sault Ste. Marie, we were able to announce 200 new jobs last Friday,
Excellent.
an announcement of $76 million by the federal government, but also by Tenaris.
The honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, according to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, 74,000 rejected asylum claimants remain eligible for luxury health benefits like physiotherapy and counselling under the Liberals. One of those rejected asylum claimants was Fawad Ahmad. After leaving Afghanistan, he went to the United States, where he choked his wife and threatened to choke her again if she called police. He then entered Canada and claimed asylum but was rejected. Can the health minister explain why rejected asylum claimants who choked their wives get better health benefits than law-abiding Canadians?
Good question. The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As I've said the last number of days, the budget officer confirmed what we already know, and that is this health program provides limited, temporary, essential health coverage for vulnerable people. The cost is tied to volumes. The good news is our volumes have gone down by 59%. Taxpayers will be saved over $200 million annually because of the IFHP changes that we have instituted. Thank you.
The honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, maybe the Liberals need a taxpayer-funded counselling session to understand why Canadians are furious. After leaving Afghanistan, Fawad Ahmad went to the United States, where he choked his wife and threatened to choke her again. He later entered Canada and claimed asylum, but was rejected. Yet the Liberals kept him eligible for taxpayer-funded luxury health benefits like physiotherapy and counselling. So will the health minister finally admit this is wrong, or does she believe rejected asylum claimants deserve better health benefits than Canadians paying the bill?
That's right. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. What Canadians need to know is because of a Liberal budget and because of a Liberal bill, Bill C-12, the budget officer has confirmed there will be 200 plus another $200 million savings in the interim health care coverage because asylum numbers have gone down and because we brought forth Bill C-12 to curb exactly those situations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Red Deer.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the minister confirmed she has no clue where nearly 30,000 rejected asylum claimants with active deportation orders are. These people are wanted by the government and are hiding from authorities. Therefore, they're breaking the law. And yet, all of them are still entitled to better health care than Canadians. It's more cost, more waste, more corruption, and more of the same. This Prime Minister is just another costly Liberal. Why does this Liberal government continue to let thousands of fake refugee fugitives freeload luxury health coverage on the backs of struggling families?
Good question. The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, let me just confirm that last year the Canada Border Service Agency removed
an incredible number of individuals who are ineligible to be here in Canada, Mr. Speaker. Over 23,000 individuals were removed. This year, CBSA is on target to continue that trend and to ensure those who are ineligible to be in Canada are removed expeditiously. Our men and women of the CBSA are working hard each and every day to ensure the safety and security of Canadians, and we will continue on that path, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Thank you, Speaker. In response to my question regarding Prescribe IT on May 6th, the Minister of Health said that she spoke to the Board of Directors of Canada Health Infoway, causing them to fire their $1 million CEO, Michael Green. However, just the day before, the chair of that board, Dr. Peter Vaughan, said that the health minister had never personally raised concerns with him or the board about the $300 million wasted on Prescribe IT. Mr. Speaker, both these statements cannot be true. Will the health minister tell us which statement was false?
L'honorable ministre de la Santé.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I will tell my colleague that I speak with Canada Infoway through the representative of Health Canada who is on the board. I don't have a direct conversation with anyone on the board because Health Canada had somebody on the board. And I would say also that we take the right measures because after our conversation with the board, they removed the CEO of the company, and now we have an interim CEO, and we are working on the governance. Thank you.
The honourable member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, am I therefore to understand she spoke with her representative on the board, but that board member didn't tell the chair of the board that she had spoken with him? Did he mislead a committee of this House? And if so, will she have another conversation with her representative on the board to dismiss another executive at Canada Health Infoway?
L'honorable ministre de la Santé.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, pour la question.
I'd like to thank my colleague for the question. I'm not sure exactly what my colleague is trying to raise. He knows very well that this is an entity that is separate from the government. We have a representative on the board. And it is through that representative that we speak with the organization. I will not enter into considerations of who said what, but I have spoken to the representative. Thank you.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, in March, the Liberals entered into a lease with Maritime Launch Services for a so-called spaceport. The lease was backdated 1 full year to April 1st, 2025, handing Maritime Launch Services $20 million tax dollars for no work and no value to taxpayers. Why?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, establishing Canadian sovereign space launch capabilities will drive billions in investments, create good-paying jobs, increase Canada's sovereignty, reduce our reliance on the United States, and support a commercial space launch and re-entry industry that could be worth up to $40 billion. That is what we're investing in, and these are essential capabilities that protect Canada and create massive economic benefits for Canadians.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, after handing $20 million tax dollars to the nearly bankrupt Maritime Launch Services for no work, the chair of the board sold his previously worthless shares, pocketing $1.8 million. So what we have is one big corrupt scheme in which Liberal insiders are getting rich while taxpayers are getting fleeced. How can the minister possibly justify this?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Monsieur le Président, la mise en place des...
Mr. Speaker, the creation of our sovereign launch capacities in Canada will enable us to generate huge amounts of investments, well-paid jobs, to strengthen our sovereignty, to reduce our dependence on the U.S., and it will enable us to support the commercial space launch and re-entry sector. We are investing in this. These are essential capacities and will generate amazing economic results for Canadians.
Member for Calgary Centre.
Mr. Speaker, today the CEO of Spaceport has described questions about this $200 million giveaway as a clueless meme. Well, he's in good company. The Minister of Defence has similarly responded to questions about the egregious lease terms as being stupid. Let's review. The minister signed a lease gifting $20 million of taxpayers' money in arrears to a near-bankrupt company. Insiders immediately cashed out millions of dollars. Canadians are rightly asking questions. Can the minister explain how this makes taxpayers clueless or stupid?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I think if the Conservatives can explain why they are anti-Nova Scotia, against green hydrogen in Nova Scotia, against Mercy Wind in Nova Scotia, against development in Nova Scotia. They're against Nova Scotia workers, Nova Scotia ingenuity. Every single time in the last 2 weeks, common theme, anti-Nova Scotia. We on this side of the House support Nova Scotia workers, Nova Scotia business, and this project.
The Honourable I could barely hear that answer. Because of the noise in the House. The Honourable Member for Calgary Centre.
Boondoggle. Sorry, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Centre. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before the member goes too far defending this boondoggle, let me refer him to the publicly disclosed documents. A year ago, Spaceport's auditor indicated they were near bankruptcy. Nothing indicated the potential windfall of a $20 million lease with the government. Overpaying is one thing. Gifting $20 million to your friends is an egregious abuse of taxpayer trust. Liberal insiders selling their shares for millions of dollars after the minister's giveaway. The Securities Commission will have to investigate. Will the minister tell us who he thinks is going to be left standing when the music stops?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Another running theme in this House, conspiracy. The Conservative Party of Canada should now be the CPC, Conspiracy Party of Canada. They love a great conspiracy. It couldn't be that Nova Scotia is excelling in a new industry. Couldn't be that. Couldn't be the great workers. Couldn't be the Premier of Nova Scotia, a Conservative who supports it. Everywhere you look, there's a conspiracy when it comes to the Conservative Party of Canada.
The Honourable Member from Beauport-Limoilou.
Monsieur le Président.
OK, on est ça. Il y a de quoi qui se passe là-bas, mais j'ai rien entendu.
I wasn't able to hear. The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, last week I had the opportunity to organize a roundtable with a number of businesses in my riding, Beauport-Limoilou. We discussed current trade issues and the upcoming CUSMA review. These businesses insisted that it was important to preserve strong trade relationships with businesses in the U.S., while also ensuring that we have more stability and predictability. Can the minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade tell us about the discussions that we're having with our American partners and explain how our government is defending the interests of our businesses and workers? The Honourable Minister. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for his important work on this key file. This government is determined to pursue negotiations with our American and Mexican partners. As we are coming closer to the CUSMA review, for example, we've been meeting with industry leaders and provincial and territorial representatives, just as my colleague met with businesses in his riding. In this way, we will be able to perform the review appropriately and ensure that we have an agreement in the interests of Canadians.
Wellington, Halton Hills North.
Mr. Speaker, the text of the MOU signed by the Liberal government with Beijing's Ministry of Public Security remains secret, considering that Beijing abused the previous MOU signed by the Harper government, including by coercing some 25 Canadians to return to the PRC under Operation Fox Hunt, and considering that a year ago both a public inquiry on foreign interference and the Prime Minister both said that Beijing presented the greatest threat to the security of Canada, will the Liberal government release the new MOU to assure Canadians Beijing won't coerce others to return to the PRC?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has entered into MOUs with China on combating crime in varied forms since 2010. As historically has been the case, we have entered into these agreements on the advice of Canada's intelligence and law enforcement agencies, and they have also not been released publicly. And I look forward to meeting with China's foreign minister and having a constructive exchange on areas of mutual interest, and we will continue to uphold Canada's values and the rule of law. Thank you.
The honourable member for Wellington, Halton Hills North.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if Beijing's foreign interference and transnational repression are the greatest threat to the security of Canada, and if the government is confident about the MOU between itself and Beijing's Ministry of Public Security, the government should simply release the MOU and let Canadians decide for themselves. Will the minister raise the issue of transnational repression and foreign interference when she meets with Foreign Minister Wang Yi this week?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Speaker, our government will always stand up for Canadians, protect our national interests, and engage from a position of strength. We welcome the upcoming visit of Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, the first such bilateral visit to Canada in nearly a decade. We will also work with China where it advances Canada's national interests, including on trade, including on economic stability and global security, while defending Canada's sovereignty, security, and values unequivocally, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Honourable member for Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, the minister wants to believe that Beijing is just another benign trading partner, but Beijing's actions have been hostile to Canadian interests, even more than Washington. They support the theft of Canadian IP, they've jailed the two Michaels, they interfere in our elections, and they operate illegal police stations on Canadian soil, and they've held our farmers hostage. Canadians have a right to know that our sovereignty has not been compromised and our citizens will be protected. If the government has nothing to hide, why won't they release the secret documents and arrangements they've made with Beijing?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to reiterate that in these conversations, including in my conversation with Minister Wang Yi tomorrow, we will ensure that the guardrails in place will continue, protecting Canada's security, protecting Canada's sovereignty, and ensuring Canada's greatest economic resilience. Our government has taken concrete action to combat foreign interference, including establishing the Foreign Influence Transparency Registry and strengthening protections for Canadians and Democrats.
The Honourable Member for Surrey Newton.
Mr. Speaker, demand for LNG is growing and Canada is the cleanest supplier to help meet the demand. During the last election, we committed to making Canada an energy superpower, and we are delivering on that promise. Less than a year ago, LNG Canada delivered its first exports to Asia, and we are already expanding further. Can the minister update this House on the efforts to expand Canadian LNG exports?
Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member opposite, or member over here, for the support on export diversification. Yesterday, I was in British Columbia to announce that Canada has reached an
Excuse me, the Honourable.
The member over there.
There was, unfortunately, the noise level was such that I was not able to hear the minister, so maybe the minister would just start over.
The minister over there. To share with the members opposite, yesterday I was in British Columbia to announce that Canada has reached an historic agreement to sell low-carbon LNG to Germany. Wow. This LNG was sourced from the Silesium LNG, which is co-owned by the Niska Nation, and is expected to generate nearly $30 billion of private sector investment. It will export Canada's first LNG to Europe, supporting global energy security and economic growth for jurisdictions. It's a win-win-win-win. A win for Canada, a win for
The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
The Minister of Labour has repeatedly claimed that she forced flight attendants back to work to prevent a health crisis in which essential supplies would be disrupted. She claims she was briefed of this risk, but her department has no record of this briefing, and the senior officials responsible for briefing her were not aware of it. Mr. Speaker, confession is good for the soul, and we in the opposition are in a forgiving mood today. So why doesn't the minister use this golden opportunity to unburden herself of this guilt and admit that she did not tell the truth?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Compassion for the Canadians around the country that count on essential medical products and, yes, indeed, medical organs that are delivered every single day around this country, not just from within our own borders, from international borders as well. During a labour dispute, the Minister of Labour has the responsibility of working with the parties, and when an impasse is arrived at, foster industrial peace. Sometimes we use tools to refer these disputes to the CIRB. Of course, that member, never having been a minister, wouldn't understand and feel the pressure to make sure that Canadians have what they need in these sensitive times.
The honourable member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the member for Laurier-St. Marie's decision to leave the Liberal caucus was a principled response to this Liberal government's failure to protect us from catastrophic climate change. Wildfire seasons, flood, whole towns and communities burning to the ground while people wait for another summer where they're going to be choking on toxic smoke. Will the government reverse their backsliding on environmental protections, or will they continue to sit by and watch the world burn to the ground?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
First of all, Mr. Speaker, I would like to reiterate that today we did announce about further supports in protecting communities from forest fires, and I do encourage people to look for the resources and the information that's available to them. But when it comes to fighting climate change, I want to assure the member opposite that this government and this entire caucus is committed to continuing that fight. We see it with our regulations on enhanced methane, where we are world leaders. We see it with our nature strategy, our electricity strategy, our auto strategy. We are continuing to do the work, and we will get it done.
The honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, today, despite serious concerns raised by local communities, workers and public health experts about the future of Toronto's waterfront, Ontario's Conservative government forced through legislation to control and expand the Billy Bishop Airport. Canada's airports are critical public infrastructure built through public investment. There and in airports across the country, the federal government has a responsibility to put public interest ahead of corporate profits. They should be stopping Doug Ford's scheme. Why are they instead pushing their own sell-off plans for airports across this country?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We will, of course, consider the views of all of the people in the GTA, indeed all Canadians, as we contemplate changes, if required, in the waterfront or at Billy Bishop Airport. We will continue, obviously, to listen to all of the heartfelt views of people who live along the harbourfront, who live in the GTA proper, and obviously deserve the best possible air service that can be provided to them.
Alors, ça met fin à la période des questions.
And that ends question period for today.